Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys ACGHK figure preview video. Before we begin, I want to say a massive thank you to Ryan Kirkwood for coming out with me in person to the convention and for snapping these gorgeous high-res pictures. Show Ryan some love in the comments below because without him, this series literally wouldn't be possible. If you're looking to pre-order your very own copy of Iron Spidey, be it the standard or artisan version, I have included some links to Pop Collectibles in the description. As always, do your own research, make sure you're comfortable before buying. You'll also find the discount code Justin's Collection down there for 5% off your order if you do decide to buy from them. While you're in the description, why not smack that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button so you're notified as soon as a brand new convention figure preview video goes live on the channel. I was expecting an Iron Spidey 2.0 to look a little bit different to what Hot Toys ended up giving us. We'll dive in deeper on that in just a minute. So he does come with a full array of hands, and I like how they've almost bulged or flared out the bottom of the wrist peg connector so that it cups the wrist peg itself and it looks a little bit more seamless. They really didn't have to do that because he's got those big chunky gold web shooters on, so you're never really going to be able to see the base of the hands anyway. Just a nice little extra bit of detail. He comes with the more up-to-date PS4 Spidey webs, including the tri-webs and the just straight ones, one that's pointy and the other that's got a rounded tip. They connect to the panels on his web-whipping hands, plus some new web effects as well, including one that connects to Mjolnir to make it look like Thor has thrown it and he's webbed onto it and he's therefore flying through the air being carried by Thor's hammer. The lenses are very interesting this time round. So we've got the standard white ones like we had last time, but also some red insta-kill eyes and some almost translucent metallic blue ones. They're my personal favorite. They remind me of what 3-0 did with their DLX scale Iron Spidey. So these are the normal lenses, just a white mesh honeycomb pattern, and yeah, they look fine, but they're not really all that accurate to the movie, are they? They're supposed to have a real glow effect to them, and these more so remind me of just the regular tech suit slash upgraded suit eyes. You're probably noticing that the neck is connected to the masked head sculpt, and that's because it switches out at the base of the neck, just like what we saw with the new red and blue suit Spidey, as well as some of the other figures in the No Way Home line. That way we can have a proper skin tone neck when we have the unmasked head sculpt on. They have tweaked the shape and size of the helmet, and this time the proportions look a hell of a lot better than what we got with the 1.0. Speaking of better than what we got with the 1.0, this head sculpt is absolutely gorgeous. I can see Tom from pretty much every angle. I'm looking at the new red and blue suit Spidey in front of me right now as I'm filming this, and yes, I think this sculpt is based off that one, but it's not the exact same sculpt. It's sort of just close enough for it to look as good as that one and as realistic as that head sculpt is, but they've made some significant changes. He looks younger here. The hair is completely different. We'll get to the Artisan head sculpt later because it's actually on the body. But this might just be the best sculpted hair head sculpt I've ever seen because those little dangling strands coming around the front for his fringe, they look incredibly realistic. The only complaint I have with this sculpt is that they've overdone the red under his eyes. He looks like he's been smacked around far too much, and I know they were going for a battle damage look, but the suit is entirely clean, so I don't really love the way they've done that. There is time for them to change it though. We'll just have to wait and see if they end up making any tweaks for the final version. We are getting a brand new base mold with Iron Spider 2.0. I always like to see new base molds wherever possible, but they need to be practical. This simply isn't. It's a mess. It's this rocky little outcrop with some lava through the middle. You can pop the gauntlet on the base, as well as Mjolnir, and you always have to have Spidey with one of his legs up or in some kind of weird position to get him to stand on this thing. Plus, you're going to need to use the waist clamp. I'm not a fan of this. I'm going to switch out the base with a standard one. As cool as this looks, it's just not practical for me. And we know that if you have this figure in a dynamic pose, the outfit is going to be fragged very quickly. This is a brand new prototype. They've literally just made it, and you can already see how baggy the material is at the ankles. That is not a split cut boot design. That is fabric from the tip of the toe all the way up to his neck area. So you can't do anything about that bagginess if you stretch the suit out a bit too much while posing. Also, there's this. There's a cable connected under his foot because this time the mini arc reactors on the suit are actually LEDs. That's a neat effect, but surely that isn't going to be the final resting place for that port, because then you have to have him with his foot at a weird angle so you can connect the cable underneath it. And if you put too much pressure on the connector by way of having his foot flat on something, you're going to do some damage to that connector, and then the LEDs won't work anymore. So, a recipe for disaster. Include that if you want to with a swap out cover that will plug over the port so it's not visible, but also have an alternative port on his back perhaps. Will they do that? Or will they stick with the foot one? Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see, as is the case when we film most of these figure preview videos. We're just guessing and speculating. They have made some significant changes to the proportions. He's skinnier at the waist, but broader at the upper torso. And I like that. This looks like Tom's physique underneath the Iron Spider suit. Why, though, did they only go LED for some of the mini arc reactors? On his hips, they're LEDs. Underneath his armpits, they look like LEDs as well. I'm not so sure about the shoulder ones. They're a maybe. But the gauntlet ones, they're not LEDs. I know it's difficult to make them light up because they're separate floating pieces, but if you're going to the effort of running cables throughout the entire figure, then you may as well go all out and make those be LEDs as well. They didn't do that, so some are going to light up and some aren't. They are made of this translucent white, almost lens material, so even with them turned off, because I did see this guy turned off when they were setting up this little press area, they looked fine without the power source plugged in. I'm never going to worry about connecting up that cable. It's just not my vibe. I'm going to leave it so everything is matching. Having those arc reactors on the gauntlets painted to look like they're lit up, totally fine with me. I don't mean to beat a dead horse just one more time, because with the LEDs turned off, the other mini arc reactors look pretty much the same as the gauntlet ones. Instead of going with this really funky connector method like they did with the 1.0 Iron Spider for the spider legs, some people call them Waldos for some reason. If you know why they call them that, can you just let me know down in the comments below? I've always wondered. They've not done the individual connectors with the cap covers that pop over the top of the ports. This time, they've gone with a single integrated back panel that attaches with magnets. So when you take the Iron Spider legs off, there's no more weirdness on the back of his suit. It's one seamless piece of fabric, no cap covers, no peg ports. Yes, this potentially means the Iron Spider legs are going to be more difficult to work with, because if you bump the magnetic plate, they'll just move around on you and get out of alignment. I don't see this as an issue. I quite like the way they've done it, because now we don't have the ugliness on the back of the suit, and the trade-off is a panel that may or may not move around. The Iron Spider 1.0 suit material had a tackiness to it, not like an ugliness. It was tacky, like a little bit grippy. I don't want to say sticky because that's not the best way to describe it. So maybe there's going to be enough friction between the plate and the suit that it doesn't move around and the magnets are strong enough, they lock it in place, no problem. These will, chances are, be the same mold as the 1.0 Iron Spider legs, ratchets, and all. They look identical to me. I know I've said this, but I'm sitting in front of my Spider-Man display right now, and I'm looking at the 1.0 Iron Spider. The legs look identical to me. Now, this is the Artisan head sculpt. It could be the lighting because it was terrible at the press table. They had these really dim overhead lights, so we had to supplement it with our own lights, and the head sculpt looks a little bit washed out because of it. Yeah, I think I prefer the sculpted hair head sculpt, and that has happened a couple of times now with these Artisan releases. I'm not saying that the final product won't look absolutely gorgeous, because chances are it will. For right now, yeah, there's flyaways everywhere. The hair looks frizzy. It lacks definition. It looks like this clump on the top of his head. Whereas with the sculpted hair, you can see all of the individual strands because they're specifically sculpted in. Yes, it's not as accurate and realistic as real hair. I don't really care about that because at the end of the day, it's what looks better in the display, and I think it has to be the sculpted hair one, at least at this very moment. I'm getting the Artisan one because curiosity has gotten the better of me and I want to go for the highest end version possible. But I'm probably also going to hunt down the sculpted hair head sculpt on the aftermarket. Having a second one of these isn't a bad thing anyway, because I can just pop one on the battle damaged upgraded suit Spidey from the No Way Home line, because his head sculpt was far too clean for how battle damaged the suit was. Speaking of the suit, I haven't spoken about the material at length or in detail yet. We may as well dive in now because I like the color. The red is more muted this time round. The blue is a touch more saturated and there is a lot more texture for the blue sections. However, I thought if we were ever going to get a 2.0 Iron Spider that they would ditch the rubbery material and they would go for something jointed. In the same vein as what 3.0 did for their DLX figure. Yes, they could have tweaked the joints to make them look more seamless and invisible, but yeah, just going with rubbery fabric feels like a cop-out to me. This is exactly what we saw with the 1.0, and those suits faded, they creased, they didn't look accurate because there was no battle damage on the surface, and the same exact thing can be said for this one. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. Battle damage is not the best way to describe what I'm thinking of. Let's call it a light surface pass of weathering. The CGI model for the Iron Spider suit had some light silver chipping around the edges of each of the armor plates just to show the separation, because if it was all smooth, it would look way too CGI slash Uncanny Valley-ish. They did that in the Lego movie as well, the scratching and the fingerprints on the Lego pieces, because realism is what they were going for. For this guy, he's entirely clean head to toe, except for the head sculpt, and then we get some battle damage. Look, overall, at the end of this, yes, I'm still happy with this. I'm still getting it. The pros far outweigh the cons for me. I dig the head sculpt and the new attachment method for the spider legs and the proportions, plus the accessories, and the more accurate color scheme for the outfit. The rubbery material, I could take it or leave it. It's not a deal breaker for me, just something to be aware of. Now, I'm pre-ordering mine from Pop Collectibles. As always, do your own research, make sure you're comfortable before buying. I've included some links to their site in the description below, along with the discount code Justin's Collection for 5% off your order if you do decide to buy from them. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe. We'll catch you in the next video.